Hello, Nation, and welcome to another episode of the On Data Management Podcast, brought to you every week, empowered, as always, by HS GovTech. I'm your host, Cameron Garrison. We're going to go a little bit different format today. We are, I believe, up to episode 18 or 19 in terms of what's aired. And we're getting lots of feedback and learning and coming up with new ideas. And so today will be one of those. Also good just to be back in the home studio after a bit of a hiatus and a very busy travel summer. It was a lot of fun. If you haven't on the channel yet seen them, please take a moment and check some of those clips out. We actually took the show on the road and set up a mobile studio at the NEHA AEC in Phoenix back in July. And we had a bunch of people stop through, got some wild stories and just some interesting topics and a little bit of a flavor of the conference that came through. One of the ones that's been just blowing it out in terms of viewership and listenership was Evan from NEHA, who's actually a Jeopardy champion. That's unrelated to his environmental health work, but that one has been very, very popular. Evan was a fun interview, so check those out. But good to be back into the home digs and to have David Stiles in the control room back with us. It's a lot of work when you have to edit them all from doing it in the field. But the show was great to meet a lot of you all and see you out there at the conference at NEHA. And one of the things I did want to mention, because it went like hotcakes at the conference, is we had just released for NEHA. I'll just hold it up here. It's environmental health, coloring with environmental health. It's a coloring book. It's got sort of thematic stories throughout it. A lot of adults color. I learned that through the process of this being created and then given away at the conference. So you can color it yourself. No shame, no judgment, but also fun, maybe something to take back to the kids. And there is sort of an inspection storyline that goes through it. But it was great to see everybody in Phoenix. It was a lot of fun. As I mentioned, we're going to go with a bit of a different format and setup here today. The viewership has really grown, and it was great, again, being in person in Phoenix to get to meet people, and people were talking about their favorite story or their favorite clip. And a lot of feedback also comes in online. And so what we thought we would do today is a little bit different. A lot of questions come in directly to us, and then there's also a lot of questions and comments that are posted in the Health Inspector Reddit community. It's one of the more active environmental health spots. If you're in EH and you haven't checked it out, you should. And there's a lot of really funny stories, good questions, cries for help in some cases that go on there. And so in this episode, we're going to actually have a panel here with us, and we're going to actually take these questions that have come in from those of you around EH Nation out there. And primary source on this is Reddit, both the community there and direct feedback, as it's one of our highest viewership channels that this show is distributed on. So with us, and you are going to recognize both of these faces. One of the episodes that got talked about a lot when we were on site at NEHA was the one with you all, Caitlin and Melissa, and we had Kristen on that panel as well, talking about the craziest stories of a day in the life, really, of an environmental health inspector. So I'll go from my left to right. On the left-hand side of the screen, we have caitlin.gappa. She's actually the founding, if you remember, all the way back to episode 2 of this series. She's the founding director of the Douglas County Environmental Health Department in Colorado. Literally, her episode was titled Startup Health Department, and she did that, booted one up from scratch, which is a pretty rare thing. So we have Caitlin in the left-hand side of the screen, judge and expert seat, and on the right-hand side, another frequent flyer and familiar face to those of you here on the channel. We have Melissa.rogerson, who was supervisor for 11 years at the El Paso County, Colorado Environmental Health Department, which is Colorado Springs, beautiful part of the state and a beautiful part of the country. Ladies, welcome. Thanks for venturing back in.
Yeah, thanks for having us back.
So I thought this is going to be a lot of fun, engagement with the community and giving people an outlet to be able to ask maybe what might seem like a silly or a simple question. My dad used to tell me growing up, son, there's no such thing as silly or stupid questions, only silly or stupid answers. And, the older I get, the more that actually is borne out. So we're going to just have fun. We're going to free flow with it. And what we will do at the beginning of the question, we'll read it. So we have a lot of people who are just on audio only, listening to it on their car. I met a guy at the conference who walked up and kind of hollered at me from across the floor at the booth. And he's like, "Hey, Cameron, I hear a lawnmower in my head." And I like, okay, like, do we need to call 911? Or I didn't know where he was going with that. And he said, "I guess I owe an explanation." And he said, I every week when I mow my grass, I listen to the podcast. And he said, so I thought he goes, "I heard your voice talking to somebody over here, and I just automatically, my mind filled in the lawnmower track in the background." So for those of you that are mowing your grass or driving, doing things like that, we'll read the questions or the comments. We'll also put them on the screen for those of you viewing. And then we're going to shut up and let the experts either have fun with it, or actually, in the case of some of these are very serious, actually hopefully give the person asking in the community at large some news or information that they can use. So let's get right down to it. We'll start with the first one. And Caitlin, I actually think, just based on the program areas from your experience historically, probably is right up your alley. And the title of this one is Rodent Complaints. And this is from, I tell you, the handles crack me up on Reddit. This is from Delicious Following 4. All right, Delicious goes on to say, "I am rarely assigned to go out on a nuisance complaint, but the other day I got 3 complaints. I got one for rats coming in from a neighboring property, one from mice coming from a vacant house next door." And this, I don't know, maybe it's not strange. It seems strange to me, but she said, "and one for poison ivy." Because maybe the reason I think it's strange is my first call wouldn't be to the environmental health department when I got poison ivy. But she says the poison ivy is an easy one to remediate because, well, it's poison ivy. You can see it. She said the rodents, on the other hand, were more of an issue. She goes, "What are the signs? Because it feels like they're less obvious." And went on to ask, "In my mind, there would need to be food or water on premises for an infestation or for rats or mice to exist. What should I be looking for, and how can I look for and spot a variation?" Caitlin, not to make you the rodent lady, but I do think this was perfect to throw to you.
I think I was the rodent lady at the health department, so it's perfect. And I have to go back to your silly answer statement first, because we at one point had somebody working for us who gave an answer to somebody who made a rodent complaint. And the answer was, "Well, just call the Rat Terrier Club and ask them to come out and practice, and they'll scare your rats away."
They really gave that answer?
They really gave that answer.
Wow.
It was not a shining moment for us at that point, but it was worth laughs for years still later.
Did they get fired? I mean, it's hard to get fired from government, but that's a cheeky answer.
Pretty hard. Yeah. There was a discussion, and we did get a complaint from the Rat Terrier Club about it. So we had to do some remediation there.
That's wow. So, to Delicious-Following 4's question. So, as an amateur EH, literally just playing one on TV, my first thought that would come to my head, Caitlin, is I think they're pretty prolific poopers.
They are. They really are. I think there's a lot of things that you have to look for at a rodent complaint. And from our standpoint, where we are in Colorado, we didn't really have a lot of authority when it came to rodents. So we often would team up with zoning or code enforcement, which I think is always a good step to take. Partner up with those that you can collaborate with, and you can kind of often get a little better response from those that might actually be harboring rodents. But the first thing I always looked for was actual rodent harborage. So are there a lot of weeds or a lot of wood piles that aren't maintained well? Are they wood piles that are close to the house? Or is there a lot of junk on the property that rodents could actually live in? And if there are, then I might start considering writing it up. For me, it was always a recommendation too, because it's really, really hard to prove that it's truly a nuisance coming from that property. And there was a really, really great NEHA presentation about 10 years ago about a rodent situation where it's always hard to prove that the rodents are actually coming from that property. But in that situation, they were fancy rats, and they were very obviously coming from one property because they were easily identifiable rodents.
What is a fancy rat?
So they're like kind of rats that you like buy at a pet store.
Oh, okay.
And they're black and white or brown and white. And so in that situation, they were easily identifiable as fancy rats. But in most situations, you can't prove that they're harboring the rodents. So it's mostly a recommendation. I think the original poster of this question said like there was a shed there. I wouldn't write up a shed unless it was like cluttered. You could see rodent scat, like you said, left behind. You could see rodent evidence of rodents. So like they'd been gnawing on the shed. You could see teeth marks. So that's kind of how I would approach it. Do you see rodent harborage? Do you see evidence of rodents? If you do, then you might be able to take the next steps. But if you can't prove that the rodents are living there because of what's there, I would make some recommendations, maybe. And that would be about all I.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's an interesting point. It's hard to prove like the source. Yeah, I guess on account of them having 4 legs and moving quite a bit and not being able to ask them for license and registration, right?
Right. I mean, they live in nature, and if they're just there because it happens to be nature, then you can't really do anything about it. But if they're there because somebody's providing them a good home, whether it's a wood pile or tires or a bunch of junk in the back that they're nesting into, you really can't do a lot.
So in closing, just to get to one other thing that she had mentioned, she basically was like in her mind or their mind. I'm not sure. Sorry, I don't want to assign a gender to someone. It's just a screen name. But they had mentioned that if there was no food or water around, that they thought it stood to reason that there couldn't be an infestation. But to the point of, it's hard to know where they're coming from, and they can run out for a snack. Is that a solid baseline assumption, or is that a logic that probably doesn't belong in the equation?
I think that's solid logic. Like I said, harborage isn't just where they can live. It's also, do they have a source of water? Do they have a source of food? So if it's something like, let's say there is a bunch of junk in the backyard and they're feeding their dog outside, or you see evidence of dog food or even dog feces, right? That can be a source of food too. Sources of food and water, I think, are really important and something that you need to take into consideration.
Excellent. Good to know. And so this next one is fun because it's actually kind of an inside joke from the last episode that you all did in panel form. And so it is from D. Cresswell, and it asks, what are the best boots to wear for a sewage inspection? It goes on to say, doing residential sewage inspections, I'm trying to find out what are the best boots for the summer months when it's so hot. Right now, I've been wearing tall muck boots, but I need something with more ankle and arch support. Also, I don't want them to be too hot to wear. Does anyone have any good recommendations? I think I know what Melissa would be wearing. I'll go with ballet flats.
And yeah, I didn't do sewage inspections, but I did like vector mosquito complaints, and would often be walking around in mud and fields, and I continued to wear my ballet flats, and I lost a flat into the mud once, so I'm probably not the best to answer this question.
Caitlin, what is the proper septic footwear?
For me, I always wear cowboy boots, which I think is probably a good answer. They're leather, they're pretty waterproof, decent arch support, I would say.
And they look good too.
I know there's a couple other good boots out there, like Blundstones. They're a shorter boot, but they are also waterproof, and I really enjoy mine that I wear. And that would be for septics. But if we're talking about sewage flowing down the street, I would stick with those mock boots.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, there is actually some room for interpretation between the lines there. What kind of sewage are we talking here?
Yeah.
I assumed that it was septic, but you're right. Use the word sewage. So, all right, D. Cresswell, hope that works. Get you some good-looking cowboy boots and maybe a hat, and then you'll be all set. If you want to chime in on how deep it was for you, feel free to do so. Go over to the next one. It's a little offbeat. It was also around fashion. It's not in the footwear category, and this is from Virgo 99. Lead pesticide inspector interview. Hi, I'm applied to be a lead inspector with my state's Department of Agriculture. Mostly I'm wondering, does anyone have any thoughts on what type of attire to wear? He notes there in parentheses, he's a guy, so we've got a dude. Not sure if a suit is too formal or if it's business casual, if that makes more sense. Both are a step, if not 2 steps more formal than anything that I think we'd wear in the field. Any other tips are appreciated. Thanks, Virgo 99. Is there anything differentiating or special about a pesticide interview from any of the other programs in EH? Caitlin, throw it to you first, and then Melissa, get your thoughts. I think let's broaden that one out. Interview attire in general. You have an interview. You're going to be an inspector. What do we wear?
I think it's important to dress for success. And as a hiring manager, something I always looked at was what you're wearing, even if it was just an inspector position. I think it's a sign of respect to dress nicely for the person that you're interviewing with. So I think a suit is absolutely acceptable. Even a nice shirt with a tie is acceptable. It shows respect to the person who's interviewing you, and I think it also shows a desire to dress appropriately for the situation. Even though it's not something you would wear on a daily basis and you're aware of that, it's still showing respect and pride in yourself, right? That you're looking nice.
Yeah, professionalism, pride.
Yeah.
And so for you young folks who are getting into careers in general, but especially in EH, or specifically Virgos, because we're answering your question, you heard it from Caitlin there. This is actually from the mouth of a director, the exact kind of person that you probably are going to be sitting for this interview with. So don't go stingy on the suit or the tie out of respect. Melissa, what are your thoughts on that? You're a supervisor. You've hired people. What's your take on that?
Yeah, done a lot of hiring. I would say you can't go wrong in, as Caitlin said, at wearing the suit, being professional. I would say something to note of his comment was that he was going for a lead role. And so it is important to show that you want to step up, you want to be up in that promotion, that higher level. Wearing the suit would be fine. But I would also say that as the interviewer, I wouldn't have been underwhelmed if it was just business casual or a nice outfit as well. And then for that inspector level, maybe not a lead inspector. Again, same thing. With our job being in the field so much and being a pretty casual environment, that without the suit, I don't think that's wrong. But I don't think you can go wrong by adding the suit coat, for example.
Yeah, go with the jacket. It's classy. And what you're hearing there, I think, is from them again. People that hired just as part of their day-to-day job, health inspectors, is that they don't think you overdressed if you wear it. It's taken as a sign of respect and of probably maturity. But business casual doesn't cost you bonus points or score you lower. Did I sum that up? We got loosely fairly well. Everybody?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. This next one actually is a theme. If you go to the subreddit health inspector channel itself, and there's over 6,000 in there, very active. This is actually a theme, not just on the mobile topic we're getting ready to talk about, but there's a lot of, I think you guys may lead into it from this one. So this one is, again, we have a repeat frequent flyer in the same episode, delicious-following 4, with a second question. Mobile food unit burnout is the subject. And the question is pretty simple. On average, how many mobile food units and special events would you say you inspect every summer? Also, how do you keep from burning out on inspecting at fairs, festivals, etc.? I am so ready for summer to be over. Melissa, we'll start with you. Mobile, but if you want to take it even more broadly, because burnout is a common theme in a lot of these posts.
Yeah, I would take it more broadly and to just point out that burnout is big. I feel like, especially maybe more so from my experience in like the food aspect of inspecting. I felt it at one point that the way that I always explained it to people that didn't do my job is, there was a point in time where I was like, I really don't want to go do this inspection. I just really can't get myself motivated to go do it. And at one point, my husband at the time had said to me, like, just go get it over with. And the thing that I came back with is, I don't think you understand. It doesn't get over with. It doesn't go away. It just hops back at the bottom of your list and it'll show up again 6 months later. I think that is like one of the number one things that always got me in with burnout. But I think I found a lot of ways to get through that. In terms of like requesting, hey, can I join another team as well? Providing some mix up into your workload can really help. There's not always an opportunity to do that. So as the supervisor of those programs that weren't food, I always had a lot of people coming to me saying like, hey, can I join your program? And it was always, I always met that with, I'd love to, I don't have a spot right now, but thank you for voicing your interest and we will keep you in mind as soon as we have that availability or we need more help. So always voicing that you want to maybe mix up your workload if it's potential at where you work. I know some people are true specialists and not as much generalists. So there's not always an opportunity to do that, but even just asking in the program that you're in, hey, what are some additional projects I can help with, or something else that you can mix into your workload to kind of mix up your days to kind of add something different. And that is the one thing I always truly loved about environmental health is every single day is different. And even if you're going to the festivals day after day, or you're doing mobiles, like you're not seeing the same 3 mobiles each day. You're going to see 3 different mobiles and you're going to see very different things on each one. So just remembering those positives and knowing like, I have no idea what I'm getting myself into, even though I know I'm doing mobiles, I'm sick of doing mobiles, it's going to be different and there could be a lot worse. I always told myself like, it was so nice to have a different thing every day and trying to think positively about it so that you're not getting stuck in, oh, I don't want to do another mobile. You can think of like, what am I going to see today and how am I going to respond to that? And then think back on your days and realize that they're all different. And there are jobs out there that you could be doing the repetitive work every single day. And this isn't one of them.
A good point. How pervasive do you think is the sense that you talked about? Like you told your partner that, no, it's never done. I just have to go back in 3 months. How pervasive is that sense of dread, do you think? I mean, I know that's a deeply personal thing for everyone, but is it pretty common?
I experienced it and I know some other people who have as well. I don't know that it happens to everybody. And truly, there are people out there that love food and they love food inspections. And we need so many more of those people because those people amused me. That was not me. Just to be honest, but like there are people out there that would love to do those inspections over and over and over again. I luckily found my niche and found it in other programs that weren't food, and I had a great time doing it. But I would say that it can be common of people just like struggling to find that motivation to get back to the same place that they've already been to before.
Yeah, especially if the operator or the owner's a jerk. Caitlin, what's your take? Burnout in general, but specific to this person really did seem burned out on mobile. Are there factors that make mobile harder or more stressful or more monotonous? Is there something that differentiates them from normal burnout? And throw it to you on all of that.
Yeah, so I think broadly, burnout is a huge problem in environmental health, especially like Melissa said. I dealt with the same thing. Yeah, sure, I'll get this inspection done, but who knows if I need to go to a follow-up in 3 days or if it's just jumping to the bottom of my pile in 6 months or 3 months, right? And I think I even saw a little bit of that on the Reddit thread as well, that feeling is pretty pervasive. And summer is the worst. I think we have, like this person mentioned, you have festivals, you have tip events, you have special events, you have mobiles that you're inspecting, and some of those mobiles are coming from other counties where maybe they have a little bit of a different way of inspecting, or maybe even a different code. And that's difficult to deal with because they're coming from another county or another state even sometimes, and they're saying, well, it wasn't that way where I came from. And that's frustrating and it's difficult to deal with. And we always did have big events when I was with the health department, especially in summer. And especially ones that are like popping up, you get an application the day before. So you don't have a lot of time to prepare for it even. And some health departments are really good at not allowing that to happen, and some let it slide. And that's really hard too, because then you have people who want it to happen because the other health department let it happen. One thing that I always did try to do with these types of festivals is one, make it a team event. One of our biggest festivals was on Food Network one year, and Food Network was out there filming while we were trying to get them set up for prep or pre-opening approval. And when you have hundreds of vendors, that's a big undertaking. And so if you make it a team event and you kind of do some teamwork or team building before that event, it makes it a little more fun. So what we would do is like go out for a meal beforehand, or afterwards, once everything was done and we had signed off on everything, go enjoy the festival if you can. So we would walk around and see the vendors and maybe go check out the live music that was happening or something like that, just to kind of make it more fun. We have a festival here that we always had to inspect on a Saturday, which is always a bummer. You didn't get overtime pay for it. You might get comp time for it. So we tried to make that really fun too by, in the morning, I would meet everybody. We would bring breakfast burritos. We would eat breakfast burritos for fun. And then we'd go do the inspection. And then when the inspection was over, we would go walk around. They had elephants there at one point, so we'd go see the elephants. We would go see what vendors were selling, see if somebody wanted to buy something. And then it was kind of more of a team building event than it was work, and it ended up being more fun.
Great idea.
Another thing I would recommend is just like scheduling breaks. So we had that really large event, make time for a break to go drink some water. It was 9 million degrees out, it felt like, because it was on a parking lot, so it was hot. Schedule breaks, drink water to kind of cool down, recoup from dealing with those difficult operators, and then go on to the next inspection. So those were the things that I tried to do to prevent burnout, because it's a real, this time of year, it's a big deal for those type of events. And
I think a lot of people hearing this are like, oh, wow, I wish I worked in the department that she ran. Going and listening to the music. I heard pretty much partaking in every part of the festival but the alcohol in that answer. So
if you can, like some places would let us walk around afterwards, and if it's an open event,
great.
Yeah, go hang out, make it fun.
It's a great idea. It really is. And we are working on an episode for in the future on the topic of burnout specifically, because there's some stories that have even made it to the news involving health inspectors that kind of trace back to that. And it really warrants discussion. So that'd be something we definitely get back to. I'll remind all of you all listening, we're getting ready to do one that's really fun. But remind you all, before we go to the next one, that there's a lot of ways to communicate with us. And as you can see in this episode today, we put those things on the air and we'll bring it to the best minds and bring a panel together and help you do that. You can email us if you want to just email us directly. You can do that. beyond@hscloudsuite.com, beyond@hscloudsuite.com. And you also, we're doing a lot of the activity here from the Reddit community and our following and audience over there. So absolutely, you can check out a lot of our content there. I believe Caitlin and Melissa both are on that thread, trolling it on the regular. I know Shirag is from HS GovTech as well. And it's a really good community, and it's the real deal. People care. They actually are doing what they say they're doing in a lot of cases, and so you can get some good information. So you can contact us there. You can comment on our videos there. Also, feel free to comment. And while you're doing that, if you don't mind, like and subscribe. It doesn't taste good every time I say it, but it really does help. So any parts of this that you enjoy, if you don't mind, hit a like, hit a subscribe, and we really appreciate it and look forward to continuing to hear from a lot of y'all. On that note, this one is fun. There's nothing like an argument between health inspectors on the food code. And so with that, the headline, I think, tells you it's going to be good. The subject is it against health code to use a pocket knife in a restaurant kitchen? The person says, I'm having having a debate, and the person they're having a debate with caught someone using a pocket knife, an employee using a pocket knife to cut a potato. I have a lot of questions in general, but we'll get there. They claim it's a health code violation. I'm not so sure that it is. Obviously, I wouldn't consider this to be best practice, but as long as the knife is properly cleaned and sanitized, what's the violation? I also understand that the answer might vary by region or state. True point there. Any help in clarifying, something tells me he's got a bet on this, would be appreciated. Well, fancy ad 9663. Let's throw it to the panel. Melissa, what say you? Pocket knife, potato cutting, kitchen, health code. What do you think?
Yeah. I am like probably the worst to ask. I didn't do food recently, but they make a good point that if it's sanitized and it's clean, what could be like the thing that I don't know that Caitlin hopefully can clarify is whether it does have to be a food grade like equipment or not. Because the good point about like if you're sanitizing it and it's technically considered clean, what's the difference between that and another knife? But there may be a regulation that requires food rated equipment. That's beyond me.
So the big caveat or asterisk on this is check your state's food code. But Caitlin, care to opine? Swiss Army knife and a potato. What do you think?
So as someone who has used pocket knives to cut food before, I have a lot of thoughts on this actually. But the first one is Melissa's correct. It depends on your local food code and if it requires an NSF or UL or other commercial rating for your utensils. And if it does, then this is obviously a violation. Is it a critical or non-critical violation? It's probably, or priority or foundation. It's probably a foundation or a non-critical. But I think when it comes to sanitizing a pocket knife, that is not an easy thing to do. I cut apples for my horses with a pocket knife every day. And when you close that pocket knife, that little groove that the knife fits into is almost impossible to clean. It's gross. It's nasty. So I think even if it's properly sanitized, I would be hesitant to allow it to be used because of that groove and how hard it would be to clean. And saying a Swiss Army knife, that is even harder to clean and sanitize as a whole. So I would call it a violation.
See, that all rings true to me. So you've done a lot of food inspections. You're in this restaurant, and must be an odd place if that's the utensils they're using. But you walk up on the person with the knife and a potato cutting. Do you mark it? Do you put it as a general comment if it's not a violation? How would you have treated it if it was you doing the inspection?
I would ask questions immediately. That's kind of the thing that I always started with, like, hey, what's going on? Why are you using this? How did it come to be in your hand? You know, how did you sanitize it before you used it? If it's just a code violation for a non-commercial knife, yeah, I'm still going to write it. I would recommend that they get rid of it for sure. But I wouldn't be like, we're throwing this knife away immediately. I think it's definitely a violation. It's something to comment on, but it's not like a voluntary condemnation.
Context, right?
But asking questions.
And I love that part. The first thing you said, I have to ask questions. Is that an oft overlooked thing, especially maybe for younger inspectors just starting out, is the remembering that there's probably a story there. It's human beings, and maybe I should start with a couple of questions.
I think so. I think people are afraid to ask questions a lot of the times, especially when you start out, right? You're new in a restaurant. Maybe you haven't had a lot of experience in the back end of a restaurant. And so you kind of feel out of your element and you don't feel comfortable like asking a lot of questions. But I think that's always key for every violation, whether it's cold holding or a non-commercial utensil. You have to ask questions about what's going on, why is this happening? Like my first question was, are they on a guest ranch? Because when I was working on a guest ranch, I did have a pocket knife in my pocket all the time. We did serve food on a overnight trip where we served dinner. And there was a time when I cut my personal steak with a pocket knife. So I have questions like, why is it that this person thinks it's acceptable to have a pocket knife in the kitchen? Did they break a knife and they needed one really quick? So I think just asking questions is always overlooked, but it's always very key part of your inspection.
It's very, very true. All right, next one here. This is a bit interesting. Opening up packages and containers to take temperatures. And I think this person is from the South, because it says, what are y'all's, and that's how they wrote it, what are y'all's opinions, love that by the way, what are y'all's opinions on opening packages and containers to take temperatures? I have a Hispanic supermarket where they have a very small produce department, and they only cut and package for the day. Everything that they package, they put on the shelves for sale, and they don't keep extra cut veggies or fruit behind the counter on hand. The only way I can get the temps of their fruits and vegetables for the inspection is if I get there really early while they're in the process. Otherwise, this person is going to have to open them. And so the question is, because it's kind of a long one, and so I'll wrap it up. The coworker, they got into, I guess, a bit of a debate there with the people at the store, and so they're wanting to know, what would you all do? In fact, the way they ended it is, what do y'all do in this situation? And Melissa, I'll throw it to you, and we'll go back and forth on it again.
Sure. Yeah, I would say don't open their product. I was always big on not opening their product and not having them waste anything that didn't need to be wasted. They spend a lot of money and they have a lot of overhead, and they need to make their money on their product. One way that I always used to take temperatures of anything that was like either prepackaged or something that they packaged on their own, if I couldn't, was to be squeeze two of the products over a thermometer and just squeeze them as tight as you can over it, so that you're not opening the product, but you're getting it fully wrapped around your thermometer to get a good temperature of that product, knowing that that might be a little bit off, but at least if it gets down below your 41, you know that at least it's in temperature. And then if it's over and it seems to be out of temperature, you can always use like an infrared thermometer as well. And if everything is just showing that it's out of temperature, then I would approach them and say, hey, we need to temp one of these. Everything I've done is showing that it's out of temperature, so we need to open one of these. Can you please choose which one you want me to open?
That's a great hack. As take two, put it on each side of it, and sandwich it in there. That's really smart. Caitlin, what do you suggest they do in this situation, or what did you do with your staff?
I did the exact same thing, the smush method. Try and smush your thermometer between the two and see if you can get a good temperature. Also, in grocery stores, we did always have the IR or infrared thermometer. And I use that as like a baseline. So if I could take some temperatures from there, and then if I identified one that was in like maybe high or questionable, I would do the smush method. And then from there, as Melissa stated, to see if we can open one and go from there. But I agree with Melissa. They've worked really hard on that product to, one, hopefully keep it safe. And you're potentially introducing contamination by opening it and taking a temperature. Hopefully you're not, right? Hopefully you're swabbing your thermometer. But I think that it's something that they've worked really hard on, and it's almost disrespectful to open it. And it can lead to them having to discard product, right? So if you can prove that it's within temperature without opening it, that's the right step to take.
The smoosh method. Maybe it'll be in a future FDA food code, the smoosh method. The other one, this is all sort of around product. It's a second one. And so let's go to the next question here. And I just have to point out and say the screen name made me laugh. It's that Beach 7866, BYTCH. You guys are really on your game with picking the handles on here. But it's around product as well. Forgetting to request discards is the subject. Sometimes I'll take temperatures on a unit. I'll find an item that's out of temp, and then I'll temp other things before I say anything to the person in charge or another food employee, because I want to identify all the problems so I can tell them all that needs to be discarded at once. However, sometimes with this approach, one of the problems that they have is they'll measure an item out of temperature, note it, and then move on to take other temperatures and forget until after they've left the restaurant that they forgot to discard or take that food. So that's one that I don't know if that's common or not, but they went on to say in the post, it was pretty long, but they went on to say that there's sometimes you are there when they're really busy, and that makes it even more difficult, or in their experience, easy to forget. So Caitlin, start to you, and then we'll go to Melissa. What is your thought on that? And is there a methodology or a way to go about temping, discarding that might help you not forget and leave food that should have been discarded before you leave the inspection?
Yeah, this question actually kind of hit home for me because it's one of the things that like always caused anxiety and stress when I was inspecting is if you make a mistake, there's like room for it to be considered malfeasance or misfeasance, which is like so stressful. Um, but I also think you just have to take a step back and realize we're humans. We all make mistakes. And depending on the temperature of it, right, the risk is really low that you're going to cause some illness. Now, if it's like a pot of beans that have been sitting at 90 degrees overnight, like hopefully that's the one that you throw away versus the tomatoes that are 42 degrees or 43 degrees that were just cut an hour ago. So part of it is kind of like assessing that risk and giving yourself some grace. But one thing that I always did to make sure when I was in those situations where I didn't have somebody walking with me, but I knew that I needed to throw some food away, was to go through my notes at the very end of the inspection and write down everything that I knew was out of temp that I might want to ask questions about and potentially discard or ask for a voluntary condemnation. And then that way I could walk through when I did have somebody with me and say, these are all of the things that we need to throw away. And so taking that time at the end of the inspection to make a separate note of everything that I wanted to discard was really what was key for me. I know we also had a piece of paperwork that we had to fill out and have a signature when we did voluntary condemnation. When we moved to like electronic inspections, we had to do that on the computer too. So that was also a good way to make sure that we threw everything away, was to have it noted on that piece of paper and then have the person sign off that we did in fact throw everything. So that would be my recommendation, but also just recognizing like we're all humans, we all make mistakes, and giving yourself a little grace in those really stressful inspections.
Makes sense. And it feels like this would be wrong to not take this time on this particular question to mention the presenting sponsor of this podcast, HS GovTech again. And that comes to mind because there is a workflow in HS Cloud Suite that there are agencies around the country using that would deal with exactly this. When you're taking the temperatures that you mark something is out, you can have it building your voluntary condemnation and discard at the same time. So actually, when you mark it or make your note, it's actually adding it to the ledger, and you wouldn't miss it in that case because everything that you noted would be automatically on the condemnation sheet. So if you're using the system and don't have it set up that way, maybe check with your director. There could be a reason from department policy, but there are some agencies doing that way, and I know that works really well. And of course, you're always free to reach out to the good folks at HS GovTech and be happy to show you a walkthrough or a demonstration of it. Melissa, I saw you nod when she said it hit home with her. Saw you nod as well. What's your take on it, and how did you approach making sure that everything that you temped and needed to discard didn't actually you didn't have someone slip your mind and leave it in there to be served?
Yeah, I would say definitely been there before. It does happen that when you're taking your notes, what I used to do is just like write down the food and then the temperature I got. And like if nobody is walking with you, then yes, you have to come back to those items. What I also found through this discussion what was difficult for me was if somebody was walking with you, not necessarily just throwing away that food item, but taking your notes. I would always try to have conversations with the person I'm walking with, trying to build that good rapport. And I would also always remember at the end, be like, man, I definitely forgot to write something down. I know something happened that I missed in my notes. And hopefully it wasn't something that was too hot. Because if the person's walking with you, it's easy to just kind of turn your thermometer and show them as you're taking that temperature, like, hey, this is too hot. And then that's a good time to ask your questions. And if it leads to discard, hopefully they're willing to just grab it and throw it away real quick at that moment. But then it's hard to like remember to write down everything because you do have to document everything that you discarded. So I often found it hard to remember to take my good notes so that I had everything documented in the end, and sometimes would have to go back. But to just echo what Caitlin said, it was always like taking my notes back around at the end and making sure that everything got discarded that needed to be.
Yeah. Speaking of, and it's so important to have a rapport. You talk about walking, talking, building a rapport. Speaking of that, next question is all about that. Subject line: dealing with difficult operators. Boy, that happens never, right? Hello, I am new to environmental health. I just got authorized in food and lodging. The hardest thing so far is dealing with some of the rude operators. I have dealt with two so far who are so irate and rude the entire inspection that it is impacting the quality of my ability to communicate and for them to understand the issues I'm bringing up. I maintain professionalism as much as possible, but I feel so mentally drained after those inspections. Any advice for these types of people? I want to help these establishments comply with the regulations in our state, but it's hard to teach people when you can't get them to let their guard down and listen, rather than verbally assaulting you the entire inspection. I also just don't want to feel this drained after these inspections. So that's also two in a row from That Beach, BYTCH 7866. I could almost just feel I don't want to feel this way anymore, just screaming through as this was written. I think this is an experience that's common to anybody that's been an inspector or worked in environmental health. Melissa, let's go to you first. What's your take? You probably have infinite stories of having to do this yourself, but what would you say to her in this situation?
Yeah, I think what we always trained our staff for, because we all know that it's going to happen, it's part of just being an EH, is dealing with angry people because you are telling them things that they don't want to hear. It's just the nature of the job. But the number one thing that I would always train and that we try to train in our staff is just to stop and listen first. Oftentimes letting these people just voice what they have on their mind or voice their frustrations will calm the situation as soon as they can get it out first. And if they understand that you hear what they're saying, you actually understand their point of view, then you can often take it to that next step. So I always had to take that approach too. As a supervisor, I would always be the person that, got that phone call, or had to call after the inspection and call the facility and say, you did not treat my staff very well. Can we please discuss what happened? And you're always asking, what is your side of the story? What is your point of view? And hearing that first, and then making sure they know that you understand, that you level with them. Oftentimes they just think that we're in there just to be food cops, quote unquote. And so to be able to teach them and educate them, first leveling with them and saying, like, I understand, I know that this is going to cost you money, like we know this, and then explaining why, and explaining the importance of what we do first, to be able to get them, and oftentimes explaining like, hey, if you caused a foodborne illness outbreak, it could shut your business down. I'm here to help you. And just making sure that they understand that we're there to educate and help more than just be a food cop, quote unquote, or any program, just be a regulator, that we're there to educate, and just hearing them first always seemed to help.
You literally went where my mind was. It went just before you started talking about it. You talked about your calling after the inspection, your supervisor, Caitlin, also in leadership. Where's the line? I'm sitting here literally just wondering, where's the line? Because she went on in her post to describe that, like, she was verbally assaulted, her words, for 2 hours. She called it 2 hours of insanity. Where is the line? And because you're sitting in a difficult seat, right? You do have the operator that you've licensed, but you also have your employees that look to you for leadership protection and to have their back. Where is the line, maybe starting with it at this level? If an inspector is out in the field, where's the line where they should break contact and terminate the inspection? Is that even an option? What do you give an inspector from just a good safety basis, but also where's the line if you don't have to be treated this way, and you can break it off and come back to escalate with your boss?
Yeah, I think that line is as soon as the inspector starts to feel uncomfortable. I always told my inspectors, you are more than welcome to in the inspection and come back to the office and bring one of us out with you. If you feel uncomfortable, either from verbal communication with that person that they're verbally assaulting you, or even if they're like getting a little physical with you, if you feel uncomfortable, you don't feel safe anymore, in that inspection, say, you know what, clearly I came at a bad time. we're not getting anywhere with this inspection. I'm going to come back later with my supervisor. That was always something that was acceptable, because it is a position often where you're by yourself and you're putting yourself in a scary position that can be uncomfortable and unsafe. And safety is always the most important. So if you feel uncomfortable from any point in that inspection, come back to the office and let us know about it.
What are your options as a director in that situation? So inspector has to either leave the inspection early, or they come back to you and say, I can't do that ever again. And so you call the operator. What tools do you have in your box to try to force them to be a little bit more civilized? And what can you do if then they refuse and this just keeps escalating or continues to be an ongoing thing?
Yeah, I think the first step is always having a conversation with them and letting them know that that's not acceptable. There is, in Colorado, it's illegal to refuse entry. So if they do take that next step to say, you know what, you're not welcome back ever, actually we are. So presenting that law, I think, is important. And if it continues to escalate, we had a really good relationship with our sheriff. And there were a few times where we felt uncomfortable going out, and we did take a sheriff.
Right
And that's always an option. But I think the first step is calling them, seeing what's going on. Like Melissa said, listening. 90% of the time, it's not the inspector that's the problem. It's the day that they're having, or the situation that you walked into. So just having that conversation, letting them feel heard is really important. And then finding a common ground. So something that I always found luck in with somebody who was not happy to see me was, just kind of starting to build that rapport, like letting them talk about what's going on. Oh my gosh, your walk-in went out today. I'm so sorry. Like, of course it would show up. I would show up on that day. What can we do to help you, save money? Because that's something that we have common ground over, right? We don't want to ruin your business. We don't want to make you go bankrupt. So what steps can we take to help make your business successful? Because I think that's the common ground that's easy to find.
It makes
There might
sense.
be other things that you can find.
And you mentioned the good relationship with the sheriff's office. You're not the first person over the years who has sort of mentioned the relationship with the sheriff's office. Did you have a similar supportive relationship in Colorado Springs, Melissa, and have to call on them from time to time?
Yeah, I would say maybe not as much with like food establishments, but we would encounter that need to potentially bring law enforcement. It would typically be our city police, but instead of sheriff, but to like an unlicensed body art establishment or something, those can get pretty risky too. But yes, we would always have an ability to reach out to our law enforcement, and even at times it could even just be maybe not a full police officer, but maybe just a peace officer, or even bringing our code enforcement with us, as they were a little more equipped for things as well. So it didn't always have to be law enforcement, but to bring a partner agency with us to be able to help and support us in those tricky moments. We definitely reached out to those when we needed them.
And obviously, it's probably not built at like a rank and file or inspector level, but definitely at management. What are steps that an agency should do? Maybe if somebody's watching, they're like, I'm not sure if I've got a good relationship or a relationship with our police department or sheriff's office. What would be the advice, Caitlin, that you would give them, that how to go about forming it? Because obviously you don't want to have to create the relationship at the same time that you need them for the first time, because that gets really tricky. So how does an agency go about doing that and establishing those broader relationships and support mechanisms with other agencies like law enforcement?
Yeah, I think we were lucky, and I was lucky in the fact that I had been in emergency preparedness and response for a minute before I became the EH director in Douglas County. And that actually helped me build those relationships. So I think some things that you can do as an environmental health department are work with your other divisions. So if it is emergency preparedness, or maybe it's your community health division. I know our community health division worked a lot with the sheriff department and what we called our HEART team, which is called to respond to maybe people who are homeless or something like that. So working within our divisions, we were able to find partnerships outside of our department and then kind of build on that. So I think you can ask your other divisions what departments they collaborate with and see if you can get an introduction that way. But I also think it's important to attend community meetings, right? So as an environmental health department, we would go to, Board of County Commissioner meetings, we would go to maybe town halls, and then you can kind of see who's there and start to build relationships with those other departments that are there as well.
Good retail politics and good advice, good life advice, by the way, too, because so much showing up is what I thought of when you said that. And it is amazing sometimes what happens when you just start showing up to meetings and things. All right, we're going to have some fun now. The last couple come with pictures and video. And so we couldn't let this wrap up without taking it to a bit more of the fun or the crazy side. The first one that does come with a couple of pictures, it's like it's from Delicious Following 4 again. We've got a couple of repeat askers in this week's. Defrost issue or something else is the subject line. I'm a new REHS. I went out on a solo inspection and I found the walk-in freezer looking like this. And there we go. You guys can marvel at that while I'll read the rest of the question to you. I told them to get it serviced, and a few days later, everything looked good. And then they came back, and apparently it looked like that. Question is this a defrost issue, or could these things have been caused by something else? Is it possible they lied and the walk-in was turned off overnight, causing the stuff inside to defrost and drip and then refreeze once turning it on? This person has a lot of theories. And so let's see, Melissa, we'll start with you. And then we'll go to see what Caitlin thinks about this one. But were they lying? Is it a defroster? What do you think?
I feel like I've seen that picture in person before. I've been in that exact scenario. It's funny because I feel like I don't remember too many things from that long ago when I was doing food, but seeing that picture brings you right back inside that freezer. I would say what I used to do, what I would tell them they would need to have a company come out and service their freezer. And I would look for that because they'll leave some kind of invoice or some kind of work order. And I would look to make sure that that is actually what's happening, to make sure that that's working. Because that same scenario has happened is they clean up all the melted ice that's on the ground, but then the problem itself isn't really fixed. And I don't know about whether they're just turning it off and it's melting. I've never seen that before, but I would always have the freezer be serviced and then double check their paperwork that it's actually fixed.
Yeah, see, that stuck out to me too. So Caitlin, as we go to you, have you ever heard of somebody either turning it off or unplugging it overnight? Is that to save money, or is that just is that a first time thought on your part as well? And what do you make of what you're observing here?
Yeah. I think it's really easy to think that they're lying to you, right? I think through the life cycle of an inspector, it's really easy to get jaded and just think, oh, they're probably just turning it off overnight or something like that. So it's a legitimate question, right? There are probably places that do unplug things to save money. But something I learned over the years was to not immediately jump to the worst case scenario, and believe that people have good intent. And I had to remind myself of that a lot. So my honest first thought of this is that they're having a condenser problem, and their condenser is leaking. It looks like they probably got it fixed, and then it's coming back. That problem is coming back by the second picture of the vent. So believe good intent, and then, like Melissa said, follow up, do your due diligence. Did they have somebody come out and test and check it? And if they did, what did they fix? Because you can usually see that on the invoice. And if they did in fact fix it, why is it happening again? Because maybe who they had fix it didn't do the next job there. So I think verifying with an invoice is really key, but I wouldn't always jump to the worst case scenario. I think that they turned their
good advice. You can make yourself crazy going to the worst case for sure. And then the last one is, wow. really interesting. We're going to play a video in just a second. I love the person's subject line in this. Still not worth the McRisk. Back in October, I found a fry hopper that was full of old fries and had been unplugged, and they had turned into, this person's claiming what we're going to see in the video is mushrooms. I thought mold. But earlier, someone asked me, what's the nastiest thing I've ever seen on inspection? I've got to say that this is in the top 3. When we're talking about something that does not involve roaches, because roaches is just a whole different kind of nasty, which I think you agree with, Caitlin, right?
Yep.
So and bonus points to double bonus points. One for fun subject line, not worth the McRisk. But secondly, included a video. So let's roll the video here and let's see. This is warning: if you're eating, stop. Like, look at that.
That's nasty.
That what? Oh. And this is confirmed to be in a McDonald's. I have so many questions. Oh, there's green in there too. Oh. Like, how does that even happen? Like, how did those fries even get there? You can tell I haven't worked in a McDonald's, but that was nasty. That was nasty. That's a huge clump of fries. Yeah, Caitlin, what do you got? Your face said that you got something.
Well, I didn't even know that French fries that were that processed could do something. So, that's
right.
mind blowing.
I think I found one under my car seat from 2019 the other day. It didn't look like that.
Looking like that.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's pretty rough. That's awful.
Yeah, that was a lot of mold and mushrooms. Do you know what that machine was? Like, so they called it in the comment. Let me look back here. A fry hopper. So I just because of the zoomed in nature of the camera, I was trying to figure out where that was in the restaurant because it was really gross. Maybe that's where they get them from. I don't know.
Yeah,
the comments are going to eat me alive for this.
Yeah, every time I've seen a fry hopper, they like have a little bit bigger basin and they're usually holding things at temp. So I'm not sure exactly what that piece of equipment was. It's hard to tell.
Tina, thanks to Tina Miller, producer, she just stepped into the studio to set us straight. Apparently, it's the machine that you pour the bags of the frozen fries into that then I guess distributes them into the baskets that then get grabbed and put in the deep fryer. So thank you, Tina, because I didn't have even half of that puzzle. But yeah, that is vile. And now we are on a mission to find the inspection where that was marked, because I got to see the comments, right?
I also want to know who was emptying it. Was the health inspector themselves pulling that out? Because I would have never touched that.
Not even with a glove, right?
No.
What's the violation on that? I mean, there's probably several you could pick from, but what were we observing there if you had to mark it?
I mean, you could go from cold holding to hot holding if you really wanted to get after it. What is it? Adulterated food. I would probably look at, and then obviously cleaning and.
Yeah, the mold's got to be worth a point somewhere.
Yeah.
Dave, I tell you what, as we get ready to wrap up, let's watch that one more time, just in case anybody missed it. And again, warning, if you're eating, take a quick minute on that. And now that we know that it's a fry hopper they'd fill the baskets with.
That makes more sense.
It looks like it got, and on audio, so David is just saved me there. So for those that are on audio, and I'm sorry to have forgotten about you there, the video we're looking at is of a fry hopper, and he has pulled out something larger than a loaf of bread, right? Would you say? And it is glued together by what, mold and mildew and other assorted bioproducts?
Yes. One big clump. One big chunk.
Yeah, it's a fry cake. Is honestly like it looks almost as unappetizing as the fruitcake every holiday season.
Whoa,
I'm sorry, I should bust off fruitcake. Yeah,
cake.
I'm sorry. Those are fighting words, and I'll get eaten alive in the feedback for that. But yeah, it looked like a fruitcake made of fries, though, and the color wasn't like fruit; it was mold and other garbage.
It was reminiscent of the green cherries on a fruitcake. Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
But yeah, green, moldy, nasty loaf of moldering fries.
Disgusting. I have a feeling some of these in short form are going to light up people's imaginations that aren't even inspectors. So, how did y'all feel about that? I thought it was fun. Dealing with actual, real feedback from listeners and from the community on Reddit. And so, if y'all don't mind, we'll have you back and we'll do it again, because I can tell you, in preparing for this, we had about 10 times as many questions as we were able to sort of stack in for one episode today. So we saved a couple of really crazy ones for the next episode. Melissa.Rogerson, Senior Project Manager Extraordinaire here at HS GovTech, working with departments across the country, formerly Supervisor El Paso County, and caitlin.gappa. Sorry, my monitor glitched on me there. caitlin.gappa on the left-hand side of your screen, former founding director, Douglas County, and also Senior Project Manager Extraordinaire for HS GovTech. Thanks for taking time out, and looking forward to see you ladies in here again on another panel for some more hijinks and fun.
Yeah.
And before we let you go, sorry, I said goodbye, and I'm like, wait, Caitlin, you weren't at NEHA, so I want to show you. You have your very own sticker, and we will get you some of them. It's a little cow with the A on it, USDA Prime. And for those of you, if you haven't seen episode 2 with Caitlin, go watch it. It's awesome. And also, though, you were a meat judger, right?
Yes, meat judger. Yep.
It's a meat judger. And what's on its nose? Okay, so Tina, I'm going to come on in. Tina Miller, you all see her at conferences in here. Hold that up closer to the camera so they can see it. That it does. He's picking his nose. I totally missed that. So the cow. It's having trouble focusing. It wants to see me. We'll post it with the episode. There he
go.
is.
That's
there
good.
We go. Yeah, he's picking his nose with his little front hoof. So that was made for you, Caitlin.
I love it.
And Melissa. One is being input into production for you. So when you come back for another panel, I bet you can guess what yours is going to be. It's going to be awesome. These stickers, for those of you that see us at conferences, we're going to be at THA, the Georgia Environmental Health Conference, a bunch of them this fall. These stickers will all be available along with the coloring books that we mentioned at the top, and you'll be able to get those. And we'll put a link for how you can request one of them. If you haven't seen us at a conference or aren't getting to a conference this year, we'll also put Caitlin and Melissa's emails and contact there, if they're okay with it, in the description for the episode. And we want to hear from you guys. It was fun, helpful, what we did, but we also want to get more of your questions and feedback. We will continue to troll the Reddit thread, and we will continue to log every comment and question that we get sent directly as well. You can email us beyond@hscloudsuite.com, beyond@hscloudsuite.com, or just comment below this episode on any platform that you're listening or watching on, YouTube, Spotify, Reddit, etc. And we love hearing from you, and as you can tell, we've got access to some of the best minds in EH. They've been there, done that, got the T-shirt and the ballet flats to prove it, and we'll have them back and answer your questions. For all of us here at HS GovTech, I'm Cameron. That's the second time I've done that in about 3 weeks. For all of us here at the Beyond Data Management podcast, brought to you by HS GovTech, I'm Cameron Garrison. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll see you in a week.